What's going on, guys? This is Miasin. So with YCS is coming back in person, I really wanted to make an updated top 10 best decks of the format to try to see which kind of decks we'll see more often now. Of course, you already know the drill. Before this video starts, make sure you like and subscribe and check me out on Twitch and Instagram. And now let's jump right into it. Alright, so in the number 10 position, I have Virtual World. This deck is very powerful, very resourceful because it can do a lot of things. It can Synchro Summon, it can Xyz Summon, so even under a Dimensional Barrier, you might still be able to at least play a little bit. And also, the deck is very resilient because Veiler, Imperm, those kind of hand traps, they have no guarantee. They might be completely dead in the hand sometimes because if you have something like Virtual World Lulu or Virtual World Lao Lao, they don't trigger on the field. They fully trigger in the hand, so even Skill Drain do not do much against the Virtual World deck, and you might be able to out Mystic Mine and other floodgates super easily with a card like Chuche, but unfortunately the deck can break at times, and that's the reason why it's just number 10. Number 9 would be Sky Striker DPE. It also suffers from a little consistency issue because it has to play a lot of bad cards in order to be really good. And by the way, when I mean Sky Striker DPE, I'm also including the Brave Token engine if you want to play it, or if you don't want to play it, then whatever, you're free to not play it because it also adds, 3 bad cards to your deck. However, it increases the ceiling drastically because you get a bounce with the Equip spell, you get a negate with the Griffin Rider, and you also have a material so that you can go into Verte Anaconda with the Brave Token and maybe something that you steal with Widow Anchor, whatever. So the deck has a lot of options, and I really like that. But again, if you are going to be seeing a lot of bricks and you're not going to be drawing Array or Rite of Aramesia or Engage, whatever, then unfortunately you might lose a little too often, and again, that's the reason why it's just number 9. Number 8 is a deck that is relatively consistent, but at the same time, it got a slight nerf with the last ban list, a very small one, and it's just Nadir Servant going from 3 to 2. The deck is still obviously terrifying. I mean, Alistair is still a very good card. Winda is super dangerous. Everybody's scared of that. Number 7 is a pretty interesting one. I would actually put Drytron in that place because Drytron, even though it lost Ava, it got a little more consistent because obviously you're not going to be forced to play those Herald of Orange Light anymore, so you can afford to play more real cards that support the Drytron strategy. You can play trap cards as well, Floodgates, and you can surge them with the Beatrice Auradon combo, which is very similar to the Curious Griffin combo, but you will basically need 2 level 6 monsters and the ability to make Auradon, so you can turn any 2 monsters into Barricade Borg Blocker, and then with the Barricade Borg Blocker and any Drytron monster, you can make it Auradon, summon 3 tokens, tribute 3 tokens, recycle back a trap card from your graveyard to your hand, and the Beatrice was the card that would send your trap card. So that would be one way that you could be able to search something like, I don't know, Gozen Match, which is very good against so many decks. Gozen and Rivalry are fantastic cards, and if your deck can play these cards, you're going to be in a very beautiful position. And the engine is still really scary. I mean, you can still make Zeus, you can Leerlusk that can attack directly, and then Downward Magician, Zeus with 4 materials. So level 1s are actually pretty scary, even though they look really small. The Drytron monsters have 2000 attack, and the big boss monster is super terrifying. I think it's like an Ultimate Conductor, a card that can send 2 cards your opponent controls, like Quick Effect. It's a really good card. So Drytron still has a lot going for it, but at the same time, you can no longer consistently go for Herald of Perfection with like 7 fairies in hand, which was degenerate anyway, so we're really glad that Drytron is at least manageable now. Alright, next up is Dragon Link. So the ceiling of that deck is relatively low. However, if it's your lucky day, it's your lucky day because having good males in that deck means you can't lose. And with the Brave Token engine now a thing, with the Strudo and Fairy Tail Snow being even better cards to mill, this deck actually got a boost if anything. And of course, I keep saying it, but if your deck can play Rivalry of Warlords, you're going to be lit this format because it's a very good floodgate, scares a lot of people, and what do you know? Dragon Link just happens to be playing dragon monsters for the most. In other words, Rivalry of Warlords is definitely a card that you can play in the deck. Main deck, side deck, it's your choice, but I definitely do recommend it to have it somewhere. And of course, the deck can make Omni Negates, which means that you can protect your floodgates, and that is definitely a recurrent theme that we see in top tier decks that can consistently win going first when they obviously win the dice roll and they draw a relatively good hand. Number 5 should come as, no surprise to everyone, and it's Eldritch. I think whether you're playing pure or branded Eldritch, it's a very good deck. Really rewards skillful gameplay and also skillful gameplay. So in other words, if you're extremely lucky, if you win every single one of your dice rolls and you always draw floodgates, you're always gonna win. However, if that's not the case, then you're actually gonna have to use your brain. Oh my god, use your brain with a trap deck. Oh, that's a new one, huh? But yeah, Eldritch is a pretty interesting deck because even if you go like Twin Twister or Lightning Storm or Duster against the deck, it's not like it was in a super bad position because the Eldritch spells and traps are actually pretty good in the graveyard, so you're not really permanently losing resources. Obviously, if you have Floodgates or other kind of cards, too bad, unfortunately, but if you have something that's lingering that can be flipped at any time to stop your opponent for a turn, such as Dimensional Barrier, well, you're definitely going to be in a pretty good position. And speaking of which, Eldritch does not lose to Dimensional Barrier. It doesn't lose to most hand traps. It only loses to like Ash and Ghost Bell, DD Crow, Skullmeister, and that's about it. So yeah, very nice that people are still playing Effect Veiler, Infinite Impermanence, and Ghost Ogre, and you just do not have to care about them. So Game 1 is definitely in your favor if you're playing Eldritch. However, Game 2 and 3 might actually start becoming a little more dangerous because people are going to be incorporating Cosmic Cyclone and Twin Twister in their side deck. So you're going to have to be ready with cards like King of the Sky Prison, or I don't know, Artifact Lancia, so you can also cover Evenly Matched, etc. Number 4 is a deck that is very good, and I think a lot of people can agree with me on that one. However, it is not unfair because one of its best cards actually got banned, and that would be Sword Soul Tenyi because it lost Archnemesis Protos, which was essentially the best card in the deck. However, the deck is still very good going second because Vishuddha is insane, Ashuna is also pretty good, Adara is good, Shatana can be good, but it's obviously probably the worst out of the Tenyis that you're playing, and the Sword Soul Engine is still very good. However, it suffers from the collateral damage of people trying to side deck Dimensional Barrier for Despia anyways, so you're going to be seeing a lot of D-barriers, which will make you very unhappy because you're definitely trying to synchro summon all the time, so you're going to have to be, you know, kind of ready for that and play, well, more strategies that allow you to go into like other kind of plays such as Link, Xyz, etc. So if you're playing the Needle Fiber route with Desbot 1, well, you're going to have more options in case you get D-barriered, for example. And this is where it gets a little dangerous, so very nasty. Number 3 would be Prank Kids. I think the deck is just absolutely ridiculous. It only needs like one card to be able to play, and again, I'm talking about Brave Prank Kids. Almost every single time I'm talking about a deck that doesn't care about its normal summon, it's always going to be with the Brave Token Engine, or rather, it cares about the normal summon, but not the effect on the field, so that's really what I meant. But yeah, Brave Prank Kids, absolutely ridiculous. If you draw Rite of Eremisia with a Prank Kids and 3-4 hand traps, whatever, I don't see how you lose, and you barely have to play any bad cards in the deck. The deck almost has like no Garnet, no Takatumborg. Every card almost is like fine to draw. Like the worst cards to draw would be like Pandemonium with like only 0 or 1 Prank Kids, but it's still not the end of the world compared to like some other decks that can draw like actual real Garnets, that if you see them, you're completely screwed. So this deck is ridiculously terrifying and really wanted banned, to be honest. Number 2, I hope I'm not gonna get too much hate for that because I think it's interchangeable with number 1, but that's really just how I see things. I might not necessarily have the most convincing argument, so if you disagree with me, feel free to let me know in the comment section below, but I actually think Despia is the number 2 best deck, not necessarily the number 1. I think it's getting a lot of representation because it's still new, people are hyping it, and people might not necessarily know how to play against it. So maybe people still have the same, you know, side deck that people had for the last format, because Despia is that kind of deck that actually came in mid-format instead of, you know, early format with a ban list. So things are completely different for Despia than they were in, like, for other decks, for example. And that's the reason why I actually think that Despia might not be as good as we actually think it is, even though it's still a very scary deck if it successfully gets to pop off. So Guardian Chimera, super scary, draws and pops a lot of cards. Mirror Jade is completely unfair, but if you hit, like, a few cards, then I think it's going to get a little nerf that might not make it as good as the other decks that I listed. And the number 1 deck would be Based. I think everybody who knows me knows that I would have put this deck in number 1 anyways, because it is ridiculously powerful. It can obviously scythe your opponent in standby phase, make a lot of Omni Negates because of Baroness, Wandering Griffin Rider, Herald of Arclight, I think, as well. You can even search Magician Souls when Herald of Arclight dies. The deck just has so many options, it's actually kind of crazy, but obviously it can kind of suffer from not being able to play through certain specific floodgates, or not being good enough going second, but the deck can play so many hand traps. And one thing that I really love about Based is that you can normal summon your hand traps and have value with them, because you can use, let's say, a hand trap plus let's say a Brave token to make shooting Riser or Needle Fiber, summon your Red Rose Dragon, and then use the Red Rose with Griffin Rider to make your Baroness, and then summon the Rocks Rose, Surge the Quick Play, and then make the artifact Dagda, whatever, Needle Fiber, artifact Scythe on your opponent's turn. This deck has definitely a lot going for it, and I definitely think that Based should not be underestimated. So that's about it for this top 10 best decks of the format. Let me know again if you guys have any feedback or if you think that I missed something in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.